Hello from Mobile World Congress 2023. I'm here together with Lacina Kone, CEO of Smart Africa. Hello, Lacina. Nice to meet you again.
Nice meeting you again. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. We learned from yesterday's session that only 25% of the people in sub-Saharan Africa are currently connected. So we have a huge gap. And the gap is somehow divided between coverage gap and usage gap. So where do you think we're stuck?
Very interesting. If you step back and look, there's about 85% of internet mobile coverage for our population. 85%. Out of those 85%, only 25% are connected, compared to 95% of the world average, with the 55% people connected. What does that actually mean? If you take 25 out of 85, that gives you 50% of usage gap. You know what that actually means? It means connectivity, the network is there, but people are not using it. And that is related to the affordability. Four things actually. There's affordability of the cost of the internet. Yes, the Africa still remain the fastest growing continent in terms of internet consumption, but internet is still expensive, one. Two, it has to do with the handset cost, smart devices. Three, it has to do with the local content. Give me an application that will actually encourage people to use internet, not just the social media. And number four is the cyber hygiene. I truly believe, because if you say 85% of broadband mobile internet coverage, it means we only have a coverage gap of 15%, which is not actually bad if you can grab all 85.
That's true.
So if we collaborate, we partner together, work together as a force to address those usage gap for area, by 2025 or by 2030, we could well be at 85%, which is really not bad, because the remaining 15% coverage maybe can even be more difficult than the passive 50%. So it's very important to really understand this dynamic, how it works.
All right. Thank you. So vast majority of the people in Africa are below 30 years old. So which shows we're actually a quite young continent. So how can we leverage and empower the younger generation so they be able to be part of this journey? I mean, you said earlier it's the devices, then we have also the content. But from my perspective, when I see it, it's not only the content, because technically, if you want to do mobile money or want to have your, let's say, a mobile banking solution, that's something what drives you probably to get a handset.
Sure. The young people, we have 70% below 30 years old. How do we unlock the demographic dividend? You see the four factors that I mentioned regarding the usage gap, which is affordability, and I talk about smart devices, cost, and I talk about the content. What does that actually mean, content? Who's developing the content? It's not the rest of the world, it's Africa. It means the young people, we need to train them in skills. Coding skills, developing application in the context of Africa, just like a mobile money. The mobile money is the birthplace is Africa. It does not exist. It did not exist elsewhere. So it actually came from Africa. We saw a problem in Africa. We saw that people are not bankerized. We solved it using a mobile technology. So we have to be thinking other area, vertical area, agriculture, telemedicine, health, education, and so on. Develop application that will actually stimulate the demand of the use of the internet. Together with the cost of the internet and the cost of the devices dropping, that's where exactly young people can actually, we can benefit from the demographic, use of demographic dividend. The reason why I'm saying this, 1.4 billion people living on the continent, we only have 6 or 7 unicorns. While Israel has 9 million population with a 22 unicorn. Estonia is 1 million with 10 unicorn. You see the potential, but it can never happen if we do not train, if we don't skill, reskill, upskill our youth.
All right, so you mean then it's more about bringing in also companies from abroad to educate on the continent, or would you rather say it should come from the continent itself?
Both. If it's coming from outside, we have to make sure it's the win-win partnership, because the Africa that we want in
We
2063.
don't want to have only cheap labor.
No, not exactly. It has to be a win-win, and we've already seen that last week here in Kigali. There were AfriLab gathering, which gathered more than 400 tech hub. You can see the proliferation of tech hub everywhere. In fact, last year, I think it's 2021, Africa managed to attract about 5 billion investments in the tech hub, 50% only in Nigeria. So there's a dynamic and a momentum going on in this tech entrepreneurship, but we need to make sure we are gearing the effort towards developing applications that are in the local context. Right now, everyone wants to develop application that is used maybe, excuse me, but in the more developed world or more equipped world. But the opportunity is here. The challenges that are in Africa are indeed opportunity for the young people.
So actually, apps should solve a problem, should help to develop, to strengthen economy.
That is the whole thing about the digital transformation contribution to social economic development.
Yeah, I agree. So Smart Africa and its member states, including the private sector members, are technically perfectly fitted and positioned to help or to create a kind of a blueprint for the continent. From your feeling over the last years, where have you seen most of the progress, and where would you say, okay, that's where we have to go to in the next couple of years?
For us, as Smart Africa, we have close to 34 initiatives. 12 of them are in the pilot. So we're creating SPV, special purpose vehicle, to take them, to scale them up on the continent. What we see in the digital transformation, either is a tech entrepreneurship use, either is a private sector, either is the government. The most important things is a digital identification, which is a continental KYC. We call it eKYC. Why? In order to transform Africa into a single digital market, look at it, single digital market, it assumes that we have a platform for an interoperable digital ID. But we don't have it. We don't have that. It basically means, as we are working with each country developing the national digital ID, we are also developing a platform to interoperate those platforms. For me, if I'm a startup in Kenya, I'm not just looking at the 48 or 50 million people living in Kenya, but indeed I'm looking at all the EAC country. That is the real potential, and that is what we need to unlock. And that's what we see as a priority first, because everything sits on that. AI sits on that, private sector sits on that, tech entrepreneurship sits on that. DPGs and DPI, which is a digital public goods and digital public info, it sits on that. That is where we need to go.
All right, thank you. Smart Africa and Orange Middle East have signed a 3-year agreement aimed to support the development of African continent's digitalization. Can you tell us a bit more about the key pillars of this agreement and the work together ahead?
In a nutshell, let me tell you, it's a very natural, this MOU, because think of it. Orange ODCs, which are Orange Digital Centers, are physically present in 16 African countries. They have trained close to 1 million young people. Some of them are working in the coding industry, startup tech. It's the entire ecosystem. I'm talking about coding, incubator, accelerator, venture, all of that. 16 countries. Smart Africa today, we are 39 countries. We do have a Smart Africa Digital Academy where we're addressing 5 layers. Decision-making layers, training, it means skilling and upskilling, advanced technical, and we have tech entrepreneurship, and we have STEM, and we have a general public. If you look at the tech entrepreneurship, that's what exactly ODCs are doing. So if we join forces, potentially, hypothetically, Orange can well be in a 39 country. If they were able to train about 1 million in 16 countries, so I think you need to imagine the rest. Sky will be just the beginning. That's why this MOU is important, very important, and will be very important for the next 3 years to come.
This is a win-win situation.
Absolutely. It basically means that you may see Orange digital centers in countries that Orange does not actually operate as an operator.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Brilliant. What is your vision for Africa's digital landscape in terms of connectivity, innovation, and inclusivity? And how do you see kind of a concept we like to call it togetherness really could drive such a vision?
For us at Smart Africa, when we look at the African digital landscape, we're doing a lot of progress, but not enough. Not enough. Because if you look at the UNG, if you look at the Broadband Commission report this year, 2.6 billion people still are not connected. There is about 680 million people not connected in Africa, including rural area where a lot of the users gap lie.
Yeah.
It means that the technology should not be only for people who can afford it in the urban area. So inclusivity is important in the connectivity. Anything that is not inclusive, it should not really be seen as a priority in Smart Africa, because we are looking at the whole as a population. Because, it all ties back to the economic. If I say tie back to the economic, everyone needs to be participating in the social economic development. So it has to be inclusive. So we're doing a lot of progress, but I truly believe it's not enough. We need a lot of investments. We need a lot of policy harmonizations. And the key really in Africa, I will tell you, the key success factor for any of these initiatives is the regulation. We are in the digital age today. Regulation needs to be agile. It's not about regulation to regulate, but we need to regulate for development. With all this emerging technology coming in, artificial intelligence, how are we going to face it? How we can benefit from it? What is the Africa say? Where is Africa standing in terms of artificial intelligence? These all have to do with regulation.
And then those are things you will tackle with Smart Africa.
Absolutely, yes.
All right. One last question. In one sentence, what does togetherness mean for you in a context of a private and public sector for Africa?
Togetherness, you said? Nothing can be done without digital corporations. We can only solve these challenges. I won't say problem. These are things I don't use in my expression. To solve these challenges, the government cannot do it alone. The government needs to be creating a conducive environment, attractive environment for private sector to chip in. The private sector is in there for profitability, and one thing the private sector do not like is unpredictability. You can only eliminate unpredictability with agile policies and policy harmonization. So it's a win-win party. Nothing can be done without the digital cooperation, digital partnership in Africa. That's why Smart Africa has a bold and innovative approach in terms of multi-stakeholder management.
You bring them together
You bring them together around the table. Regulators, ministers, private sectors, decision makers, exactly, to be able to move forward.
All right. Thank you very much. Very insightful. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. That was TechAfrica News for Mobile World Congress 2023. You can find out more on techafricanews.com.